Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. There's a lot of numbers just coming on board right now, so we let that just naturally filter in. How CX helps business grow in uncertain times, a very interesting subject. And we were very careful with our language. The word recession was not used in that title because the question is, are we in that or not? But before I start, let me introduce you to our three guests today. And this is actually a first for me because when we were exploring the subject matter, I was asking myself, who would be three great punters to have on board to take us through this question? And the three who are here are actually people that I've been working with for many, many years and over the years, and also good friends, I would call. I'm not sure if you will all be still friendly with me after today, but let's hang in there and hope we can make that happen. It's a great honor to have you all. Let me start with the introductions. Marty, you and I have known each other for many years. And Marty, you're the founder of the Carr Gulf, which is basically a global institution when it comes to customer experience excellence. Some of the work that you're doing in that particular space across different markets that you're involved in is just so rich and so wonderful. So it'll be great to get your inputs today at that kind of elite level. In terms of Paul, you and I are no strangers. You and I have worked together closely over the years, and particularly in your days when you were leading the movement of the credit union group, which became the you had a team that delivered first place ranking for a decade, for 10 years. That has never been done anywhere else in the world. So you really have a good understanding of CX excellence. I know in your new role in the IDA, you're positioning more the country in terms of foreign investment, etc. So it's a complete shift away. But it'll be interesting to get your opinions around what's going on in the world, etc. And Jasper, we've had many conversations over the years, and it's fascinating that you are the founder and CEO of your own group, the International Market Management, and you're also a writer and broadcaster on the subject of all things entrepreneurialism. So this is going to be quite interesting to get your inputs. And I think it's worth noting that I believe was it last week you received the British Empire Medal for services to the UK and India. So congratulations and take a bow. It'll be fascinating to get your insights about the Asian market and what's going on there, particularly in the times we live in. So to kick things off, if you don't mind, let me start, Jasper, if I start out with you, if you wouldn't mind. How worried should our audience be today about the world economy and this whole uncertainty? Is it something that is significant risk, or is it something that you're not feeling in your own market? Let's start with you.
Well, first of all, a huge hello to all of the CX ninjas all around the world. And I guess that's the point, Michael, is, if you're in Botswana or Nigeria or Egypt or Monaco, all of the marketeers on this call are looking at the world from different vantage points. And we live in an increasingly global world. So what might alarm you in Calgary may be less alarming in Monaco. It's a very obvious point, but when it comes to uncertainty and crisis, sort of handsome is as handsome does. I mean, if I take India, where I operate, I moved to India 12 years ago, and things that I would have thought operating out of London 12 years ago that were uncertain or a crisis are just my bread and butter today. India is a very dynamic market. I think anybody on this call that deals with India will know that it's high seasonality, it's high change, high politics, high drama. And of course, famously, we've got the Indian customer is amongst the most demanding on earth. The thing they always says, they're always wanting the 5-star service at the 1-star price, right? So I think we're used to a lot of this hustle. I'll stop there because we'll come back to this stuff. But my big thought on this really is whether you, I, or any of the CXs on this call think it's a crisis is a lot less important than whether the customer thinks it's a crisis. So I think, like everything here, go back and talk to the customer. Are they stressed out? Can you help them? Are they not stressed out?
Love it. No, great. Paul, do you want to take that on? I wonder from your perspective, because you are now dealing on the international market, and I suspect that America in particular is a key market for ourselves. What are your thoughts about where we stand today in terms of uncertain times?
Sure, Michael, and Again, welcome to everybody in the call. It's great to be speaking to people from all over the world. I think, first of all, to say that the global economy has been unsettled for many years. It's not just since the Trump administration came in January. If we think back to the global recession, as recently as COVID, the uncertainty brought by Brexit, for example, as well. But the thing about it is that there's great resilience, and international business, I think, will always find a way to function. And certainly that's what we're finding. I mean, there's tariff negotiations going on at the minute, and I'm confident that an agreement will be reached. May not be what everybody wants, but it will satisfy all parties. But that's what happens with negotiations, particularly with the Trump administration. They're into deal making. So to Jasper's point, I'm not sure that our client companies, who will be our customers, are as worried about it as maybe we perceive. And certainly I know, looking at the number of investments, the first half of this year, they're trending very well, when we compare it to last year. So is this a crisis, or is it perception that the media talk it up more than it is? But the bottom line is international companies need international markets to grow, and they also need access to global supply chains to keep themselves competitive. So I'm quietly confident, and I say quietly confident, that we will come out of this current impasse, and the world will still go on. There might be slight changes around the edges, but international business will still continue.
Brilliant, and it's great to hear that in a way. While you're not committing to positivity, we're not saying it's a train wreck at this point, which is positive. Marty, from your perspective, I know you do a huge amount of business through the States as well. What are you seeing out there?
Well, thanks everybody for having me, and thanks everybody for tuning in. I mean, so far so good. I mean, obviously this year's business is written for us, more or less. People plan a good bit in advance when they're making their travel arrangements to come over to Ireland and Scotland and go around the world playing golf. It's lead times change, get shorter and longer. So this year would be done and dusted. So we wouldn't see it in this year's numbers. Certainly next year is trending slightly ahead of where we were this time last year. It's more basically on revenue as opposed to a number of people traveling. So some of the growth we've seen over the last number of years, the one concern I would have is some of the growth we're seeing is kind of inflation-driven, price-given growth in terms of the revenue number as opposed to the number of people traveling. But generally speaking, I think there's obviously a lot of noise out there. If you're stuck on your phone every day logging into all these news apps, you'd think it was doom and gloom. But I mean, employment is at nearly at full capacity throughout the world in most markets, and we're seeing a very robust level of inquiries coming in the leisure sector. And our domestic golf business, where we run golf courses and stuff, where people are playing more golf than ever. So I think this work-life balance, I think people are certainly in the leisure sector. I think it depends what sector you're in, but certainly we're not seeing any signs of looming catastrophe or doom and gloom. We're steady as she goes.
Wow, it's amazing, because you're right. And Paul, I know you're going to talk about this later on in the conversation, but the media, I mean, they have to answer to a lot of this stuff, because I think they're stirring the pot in many different ways to keep this, to just getting people and eyeballs and locking them in. Listen, Marty, let's go back. Let's start the session then with you, because one of the key questions we had here is, how can CX help organizations to lock in your most profitable, loyal customers? What are your thoughts around that? What sort of advice can you give us around that?
I mean, basically, like, I operate in the golf travel business, bringing golfers into Ireland and Scotland, and we're expanding into new destinations around the world. And our USP ultimately is high levels of customer service, customer experience. It defines us from our competition. We will be perceived to be a premium operator. Our high-end clients are consciously and subconsciously demand the best. They are cash rich and time poor, so therefore the time they spend, it's very important that it's operated as and we deliver as great an experience in a short space of time. for me, the service that differentiates us from our customers is the reliability and the consistency of what we offer out. The reliability and consistency of the communication, how responsive we are, our attention to detail, our flexibility. Our customer base is very, they're always changing their plans, and we roll with that. We don't get frustrated by it. That's what we do, is we look after that. 80% of our customers are past clients and referrals, and that only happens as a result of delivering consistent high levels of service. We focus in this digital world, and I know that my sales and marketing team are always pushing us more into the digital world. But I'm old school like you, Michael. We've been around a while, and we've the grey hair to show for it. The human interaction piece is something that I hold dearly as part of it. I think the balance between the technology and the human interaction is pretty critical. A number of clients normally would inquire by email initially, but we would always reach out and set up a call to establish the personal connection, to get a much clearer understanding of what the client is looking for, help quantify what their needs are, or is there something we can't deliver. And then once we understand what the client wants and we kind of make the sale, we pass that on to a fulfillment executive who is really digging into the details with the client and looking at the finer stuff. As we all know, that it's the small things in many respects that make all the difference. I'm a very, very firm believer in personal handwritten notes. I like writing out to people. When I go on a trip to the States, I'll always write out and say, thank you very much for having me, in a personal basis. People seem to bang off emails now and think that covers it off. For me, I think old school is best. We write to clients thanking them for their business. We thank people for referring business. So, I think that personal interaction, particularly at our level, which is, it's a high ticket, it's a personal experience, it's very important to them. The personal interaction is equally as important as the systems that drive, our decision-making process. Now we have all the systems to track the inquiries and understand, how many times they visited, but we overlay that with this really, personal interaction and relationship. And I'm very much of the view that the relationships, are personal. They're not they're not a name on a database. They're not an email.
No, that's brilliant. And it's funny, Paul, from your perspective, from the financial services and for where you are right now, I mean, you would have always felt that the personal relationship was very, very critical as well. What are you seeing in terms of locking in best customers? What's your advice in that particular space?
Well, I suppose number one, to take up Marty's point, is stay close to the customer. That allows you to understand what their concerns are, what their needs are. Have they any particular worries at this time of global uncertainty? And so for example, if I use my current role, we have over 1,800 client companies, foreign direct investing companies in Ireland. So some might be thinking of maybe expanding at the moment, maybe not. Maybe they might be putting off those decisions. But we have other services that we can offer. For example, do they want to invest in an R&D project? Do they want to invest in training their staff? Do they want to invest in the green economy, sustainability of their operations here? So we, our project executives are in regular contact with their client company, with their client base, to find out, to establish those relationships. And like Marty, I'm a firm believer in picking up the phone. Believe it or not, before email and mobile phones, we actually talk to each other. Might be hard for some people on this call, the younger generation, understand, but we actually that's how we formed relationships, and that's how we continue to form relationships and maintain those relationships. So I think it's staying close, as I say, to the customer and understanding what their needs are, not just at this uncertain time, but at all times. That's what good customer experience is. That's what good customer service is. We can't operate in a vacuum. We have to operate on the basis of meeting the requirements of the companies that we serve.
Super. And listen, and while I have you, Paul, just to move it on to one of the other questions we were looking to tackle was, keeping staff motivated during tough times. What sort of thoughts have you got there around that particular space? Is that something that you have experience in, and is that something you can share some insight on?
Sure. As you know, Michael, I've always advocated that excellent customer experience starts internally with our own staff.
Yeah.
And for example, if I have a query or service need from the HR department or from the marketing department, my expectation is that it will be dealt with, as quickly as possible. If for whatever reason they can't do that, to let me know that, so manage my expectation. If you haven't got that culture within an organization, how do you expect your staff then to go externally and exemplify that behavior when dealing with external customers? So for me, I'm really strong on this. It starts internally, in between departments within an organization, in between individuals in an organization. If someone comes to me in my current role and asks for one of my team to help with putting together a presentation deck for presenting to a company, we will guarantee we'll be back to that person within 2 days with the deck done. That's it. So that's where it starts. If that doesn't exist, then it's difficult to keep staff motivated.
Yeah.
In a downturn, I think it's important to keep staff informed of the reality of the situation that the company finds itself in. And what I mean here is, if the company's under strain, if sales have dropped, don't hide that from the staff. Let them know, and get them involved in coming up with solutions. So if that's about reducing prices, offering discounts, if it's offering better credit terms to customers to help them with cash flow problems. And like in my experience, people are motivated when they're kept informed and asked for their ideas. And particularly if these ideas are acted upon, the motivation goes through the roof. So I think that's really important, that keeping that constant communication going with the staff. And yes, there will be tough times, but there's a sense of we're in this together. The best football teams that have recovered from 3-0 down at halftime are the ones that go into the dressing room and the manager builds them up and say, lads, we're in this together, we're in the trenches, it's in our hands to change this, and out they go and they win the match. It's the same in a downturn in a company. And finally, just before I move off this, Michael, it's I've always spoken of the importance of the core values of the organization. So I think it's so important that, particularly during downturn, that the necessity to link these values to the behavior in order to bring the values to life. A lot of values that you see in companies, they're hanging on the wall. They're in a mission statement. But what do they mean? They only mean something when you bring them to life through behavior.
Yeah.
And what do we know about behavior? As human beings, we copy behavior. We copy good behavior and we copy bad behavior. So in the downturn, when the pressure's on, don't let those values slip. Don't let those behaviors slip. Keep the standard, because then you will continue to have the respect of all the team. And again, they're uniting together to come through this downturn.
Love it. No, Paul, bang on. Marty, before I hand over to Jasper on this, any thoughts about that, motivating staff during this period?
Yeah, well, certainly, unfortunately, I've had a lot of experience in navigating downturns. It's obviously very challenging, more challenging for a SME. To mirror Paul's point, I mean, I think communication is the absolute key, assuring colleagues that you've been through this journey before. I think transparency and honesty with the team is critical. Tell them how it is, how you're going to handle it. I think making early adjustments all at one time, rather than making adjustments after adjustments. And I mean, I see that a lot in companies in the States where it's just continuous adjustments. But we've been through this, with 9/11, foot and mouth. We had the crash, and then we had the COVID, which was the greatest storm of all. And I think leadership set the tone. I remember during COVID, coming in and saying to the team, okay, guys, there's no point in us all running around here. You know, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So let's just take a deep breath. Let's run some scenarios. So we didn't panic because we knew that this was going to be, you know, a long haul. So having, you know, keeping a cool head, but certainly, you know, management or leadership does really set the tone. But it's all, I think it's all about communication, to be honest with you, and outlining how you plan to get through it and reassuring people that you've been through it before. But it certainly does help to have experienced people at the wheel in times of, and I don't think anything, you know, at the moment is anything like that. But certainly some of the previous crises have been extremely challenging, where, you know, we saw on our travel business, our revenue going to zero for 2 years, which was an extraordinary journey. But we gained more customers than we lost through that, because we engaged with every customer on the phone. We set up conference calls with every single customer. Some of them had paid a deposit. We had to explain to them that we'd passed on, you know, a good portion of that deposit, so therefore we weren't able to give it back to them. Some people weren't happy. Some people canceled their credit cards, but most people went on the journey. And after 2 years, you know, those customers are traveling, and, you know, they're referring people. And actually, the way we handle it, some people just didn't answer the phone. You know, they just put their head in the sand. So for me, it was a really good learning experience that, you know, you can work your way through these things with a cool and calm head.
Brilliant, brilliant. And Jasper, I'm going to come to you now to tell us what it's like in the Indian market, and maybe Siobhan, you might jump in after this. Give us some of your own thoughts about how we keep them motivated. Jasper, from your own perspective, what's your tricks around keeping staff motivated and busy during downturn?
Well, I think, as I said before, we feel like we go from one sort of micro downturn, and you know, we're in a kind of constant state of uncertainty. So everyone's is typically on their toes. I mean, I think probably in common with quite a few people, the CX guys on this call, particularly those operating, you know, in the African theatre, the Gulf. Number of my Indian friends are on this call as well. I mean, everybody operating in those environments is typically, let's say, versus the Western markets, in low trust situations, right? For various reasons. And by and large, you know, the norm, certainly in India, is hierarchical companies, very command control, very so-called promoter-led. I think the single biggest learning for all of us, Michael, has been really to kind of set our people free. So all about enablement. I mean, India, along with a lot of markets in the theatre, the geographical theatre, has, you know, is completely blessed by a surface of fantastic young talent. And, you know, many people on this call will know the statistics better than me, but of the 1.4 billion people in India, 1 billion are under the age of 30. Can you imagine, under the age of 30? Wow. I feel like an old man in India. That's why I've had to come back to England this week to look. When I'm in England, I look like a young man. It's the other way around in India. So there's youth, there's talent, there's hope, there's everything you need. And I totally agree with Paul and Marty on this. If you enable and activate that group of people, great things will come. Funnily enough, actually what I found with uncertainty, because this is the call's all about uncertainty, is that's the very time to be doing it, because a lot of you, even the older hacks like me, may not know the answer. And I find the best starting point, really, and this applies both to our young customers and our young staff and young marketeers, is to ask them what they think as an opening gambit. I'm always staggered how quickly they have the answer. So I think that's something about the resilience. And then I think there's something about being busy. We're always really busy in India. It's a very switched on, fast moving, 24-hour type culture, but we're a bit old fashioned. We're in the hospitality game mainly. And our customers, if Marty's customers are sort of at the top of Mount Olympus, we're kind of more in the foothills. Though honestly, we aspire to give our customers every bit as good a service as Marty's customers, but we have to hustle a lot. So, I mean, just as a practical point, we live in the restaurant business, and one of our maxims is, if the customer's not coming into us, We're not going to be sitting around as hospitality experts waiting for the customer. We're going to go out. So we have this old-fashioned habit of hitting the streets. I'm a great believer in hitting the streets, but not least because it'll be some time before the AI-powered robot will be able to go and hang out in New Delhi station, which has 9 million customers a day. You know, but if you go there, a lot of good things happen.
That's lovely. That's great. Listen, it's fascinating to get the cultural side across, as you say, the different theaters. While you're on that, Jasper, too, I'd let me hook into you on this angle, because one of the questions that we were all, and in fact, anybody, we're picking up lots of questions here. We are going to cover the questions at the end, so hang tight. We're not ignoring those, but just on that, certainly one of those, Jasper, is going to be about how can we sharpen our CX delivery and at the same time maintain the cost levels or even reduce costs. Any thoughts around that?
Well, I think it's a very good question. And, you know, there's no hiding from the fact that in uncertain times, it's just business-like. It's good housekeeping to, you know, to do more for less, to cut your cloth and the rest of it. I think where we come from on this, and again, we have a wealth of talent, so perhaps you have an advantage on this, is before we look too hard at what we can cut, we're typically much more motivated by, you know, what more can we do? What more can we do with our people? And I'm a bit here with Paul and Marty in the sense I think there's an old-fashioned leadership opportunity here, to motivate your people, you know, to do more. I mean, we're already on a 6-day week as a standard. So, you know, and that's not because we're just in hospital. I mean, we're in a round the clock culture with hospitality, but we're on a 6-day week. And I think it sort of comes down to incentivizing people to do more, to work longer, to work harder. And there, I think uncertainty of crisis can be a great benefit, right? It's the fraternity and the solidarity and the teamwork you get from crises. And then I'm with Paul, all the little enablers around being open with people, looking for the ideas. And so in that sense, you kind of welcome uncertainty if you can harness it. But to get the efficiency, Michael, to your point, I think trying to do more is the first place. And the other thing, just as a little plug for India, is there's a lot of capacity in India, right? And so one of the things we've been finding on an inbound basis is people looking at India to be able to run their CX and their customer engagement round the clock, right? It's a geographical thing, and where I'm excited, I'm not really in the mindset of this guy takes this job. I think that's a really old-fashioned mindset, but I really am in the mindset of how a bunch of London marketeers can get the extra capacity and the extra hours of an India and all different types of thinking. I think there's something very exciting in that.
That's interesting, yeah. Siobhan, I kind of cut you out there earlier. My apologies. I'm so excited about what I'm hearing here. But just in terms of, we're halfway through this discussion, can you summarize some of the inputs that have been shared so far that kind of stick with you and what we're attempting to do through the Academy?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I think there's a few things that have really stuck out for me. And I have a professional habit of looking at everything through the lens of our CX framework in our courses. So one of the key things that stuck out for me was around, you know, the power of personalization, of, you know, really knowing your customers, especially in these uncertain times when you want to, as in your words, Michael, lock in those more, you know, lock in your customers, increase that loyalty. We know from the research that personalization is absolutely key to that. And it's really about showing your customers that you know them. And, you know, Marty, you mentioned there some statistics around, is it 80% of your customers are repeat customers or referrals? Like, that's phenomenal. Like that has to be world class. So I think that showing your customers that you know them, small little things like writing a note, it's the old school things, the old fashioned things, the simple things that really make the difference. And then in terms of, you know, keeping your staff motivated, you know, again, the question is still hanging there. You know, are we in uncertain times, or how uncertain it is? And that depends on your market, to Jasper's point. But ultimately, if, you know, we're in uncertain times, it is, I suppose, really important that we manage our staff through that, and that we reach out to them, that we keep them informed. And I know all three of you have touched on that point around making sure that we're asking for their input. Like, we have amazing talent. We have so much insight, especially from frontline teams who are really close to the customer. It's so important that we get them involved, ask for their input, and that we get them involved in different things, different projects, you know, especially in uncertain times where organizations might have to pivot, have to change. Staff want to be involved. You know, they want the opportunity to learn and do new things. So to me, again, when I bring it back to the framework and to the courses, it's about trust and autonomy. It's about trusting your employees to know what's right, know what's the right thing to do, trusting them with new tasks, new activities, new projects, and giving them the autonomy to work on them and to actually really have an impact. And yeah, there are a few of the insights that really stuck out for me. In terms of cutting costs, where my passion lies is customer journey mapping, and that is just such a powerful way to look at where is there, I suppose, extra fat in the operation, where can we make it more lean. And again, that actually ties into our previous point around getting your staff involved. When you do that customer journey mapping, when you look for those pain points, you get all of your staff together, you get their inputs, and they become more energized as a result of that. They actually feel like they're part of the solution, and that they're going to be able to be part of, you know, the whatever direction the company is moving in going forward. So yeah, I think some really interesting insights there.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, Marty. I'm going to come to you back to the question about, you know, the human touch versus technology in terms of cost savings. But before I do that, I was doing some research on this last night, and again, most of the documents that I'm reading are all about listen to your customers, listen to your customers. And what I'm hearing today is listen to your staff. It's absolutely critical that we are engaging staff, because, you know, it's down to the happy staff equals happy customer. So that's a great thing to pull out of this, what's been shared so far. Marty, go back to your comment to you, because Jasper is talking, he's kind of leaning into, look, there are opportunities at the moment to deliver better CX in a downturn. You know, you've got access to a whole range of new technologies, etc. Yes, you are, I would say you're much more about the human touch. But are you seeing yourself moving into the tech play as well?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the adoption of all these different platforms and integrating them, and that just seems to be constantly evolving, and it creates more and more data, more customer insights, which gives you, you know, better decision making. But I'd like to give you a couple of examples of you know, the last significant downturns and a couple of things that came out of it. And certainly after the financial crash, everybody was under squeeze, and nobody had any money. And just like Jasper was saying, you know, looking for the opportunity, we decided to run a big conference in the convention center called the Road to Recovery. And we invited the entire golf industry to come along and talk about it. We had industry leaders, we had Buddy Darby, who built Doonbeg, and Dermot Desmond. And, you know, at the end of the day, we were basically trying to say that, you know, if you bring in, you know, professional management to small businesses, you know, because we were in the golf management business, and that did start us actually starting a golf course maintenance business that came out of that. So you know, like Jasper's point, there are opportunities in downturns, and certainly in terms of COVID in the golf course management business. Once again, you know, we had spent years trying to get people to book online, but they still picked up the phone because Jimmy at the counter would always give them the preferred tea time, and we tried to get people to go cashless, but they couldn't. And as soon as COVID came, all bookings were online and everybody paid with a tap. And that created so much additional time, one, where you needed less hours coverage, but second of all, it enabled, you know, customer service to be improved at a far lesser cost. So technology has a huge part to play. I guess it depends on what sector you're in, but
Sure.
You know, every good crisis creates an opportunity. It creates a pivot, and it's a matter of just making sure that you're there, you know, looking at all the angles.
No, I love it. Let me go on to you, Paul, because one of the things we wanted to talk about today was, you've kind of touched on it already, about that whole communications. But I know from your own perspective, you were one of the first in our market here to really leverage differentiation and how companies should be communicating that really strongly in these times. Any thoughts on that whole area of how do we communicate? Who should we be communicating with? And what sort of messages and stories should we be sharing?
Yeah, and again, just to go back to what I said earlier on, staying close to the customer is really important. It's paramount, in fact. But secondly, it's also important to understand how your customers consume their media and messaging. And if they give an example of this, so I head up a global comms team, and we handle the marketing and PR for IDA right across the world. But how we communicate on the East Coast of America, for example, to the people in the C-suite, what we're trying to reach, is very different to how we do it on the West Coast. So on the East Coast, through our research, we've known, excuse me, we know that most of the C-suite consume their information from what we would call mainstream media channels. So, New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, Bloomberg TV and radio, the Bloomberg website. Whereas on the other side, on the West Coast, where the tech bros are, they prefer podcasts, they prefer panel discussions, they prefer attending events where they can actually find out new things. So for us, it's about tailoring that message for that particular market, and sectors. So, I would contract a different PR company on the East Coast than I would on the West Coast.
Wow.
Because the company on the West Coast know that market, the company on the East Coast know the East Coast market. And I rely heavily on them to tell me the information I need, and then what we need to communicate and how we communicate that. So that's really important. And then I suppose just in terms of differentiating yourself, and I'll be honest, like Frank, our competitors are other FDI countries, so we're competing with likes of Singapore, Germany, France, US themselves, the UK. But believe it or not, we punch way above our weight because of our USP. And our USP is, believe it or not, our talented workforce. We've the highest number of third level graduates, and Ireland has the highest number of third level graduates in the EU, the highest number of STEM graduates. So time and time again, companies come back and reinvest in, expanding their business because of the talents that they get here. So when we communicate, we push that message out as part of our value proposition. So it's about understanding how people consume media in the market they're in, and then tailoring that message for them so that it appeals to their business.
Yeah, brilliant, Paul. Thank you. And guys, we're going to finish off in a minute, but Jasper, I'm going to go to you. Any thoughts on that differentiation, Jasper? How do you tackle that in a market that is so massive? Is it important in a place like India, or are they all queuing up outside?
Oh no, it's critical. India is I'm totally with Paul on this, and actually India is far more a continent than a country. And it's not just that, it's because it develops, every country develops in different ways. But India is an ancient country, it's a 3,000-year-old country, and it's hyper regional. So if you're in the food game here, which is a lot of what we do, taste and palates and flavor profiles change every 100 miles. And there are deep ancient traditions. That's what makes it so exciting, because there isn't one India. To Paul's point, there isn't one America, there isn't one anywhere really. But India is very, very local. So it matters enormously. And I have to say, I'm looking at various people's comments here from Aoife and Gemma and Vina Frederick. Some amazing insights and comments here, all in the sort of nitty-gritty of how you do this. So you've got that principle that everyone's different. Know your guests, know your customer, build the one-on-one relationship. And then again, picking up some of these comments, you've got, well, how do I do that on a very practical basis? I think, Manjula's made a comment here about technology. And I have to say, I mean, India again is interesting there because a lot of the sort of analog industries, or whether it's real estate or tech or telecoms, a lot of them didn't develop in India and they got skipped over completely. So we live in a very, very high-tech world in India, a bit like China and anywhere that has lots of young people. And I think what we're seeing there is just an explosion of tools that would allow you to engage one-on-one with customers in a way that simply wasn't impossible. It wasn't possible with old enterprise systems. And I think I mean, Manjula's made a question here about technologies coming out, but with AI coming in, and we're all now using more and more AI tools, and we're trying to train them and code them in the service of customized experience, individual comms, all of that. I think there's tremendous opportunities if you maintain that overall principle of it's all about a conversation and a good relationship. And after AI comes, and we're only in the foothills of that, we've got quantum coming along. We've got all kinds of exciting technology. So I'm hopeful. I hope I get there before I peg it. Another 12 years in India, I probably will peg it. But I'm hoping that in our lifetime, we'll see really the holy grail of a lot of CX, which is the marrying up of the principle of individual communication, different types of media, with the technology and systems that actually allow you to do that. And I think that's the big rallying call, isn't it, for the big CX tribe out there, is those old-fashioned values married with all of these new technologies. And I'm super excited by it.
I love the holy grail expression, because we have our proposition to the market is digital when I want it, human when I need it. And it is kind of the holy grail. And you're talking about it in that way. So it's a great way to finish that. Where I'm just keeping an eye on the time here, guys. And if you don't mind, I wanted to, Marty, if I can finish off with you, and we'll cover it across the board, and then Siobhan, you might jump in at the end again. Marty, if there were 2 or 3 tips that you could share with people who are listening to this again. Now, what I'm learning here is that you're so right. Different strokes for different folks across all of these different markets. It's absolutely fascinating. How would you address that? Any specific tips that you could share with them?
Certainly, I think obviously we talked about it across the board, is maintaining that personal relationship, but asking for referrals. I mean, I went through sales training in the States. I was in the stock market before I started up the business 35 years ago, and your customers are your advocates, and certainly just asking the question when you're on the phone, listen, if you know anybody else who might be interested. That's one. I think certainly delivering on your promises once you understand the customer's needs, and empowering your staff to make use initiative and make decisions within set boundaries.
Beautiful. That's absolutely bang on. And you're again, I'm so happy that we're also including the empowerment of staff, because a lot of the times when we have these conversations, it's very much customer focused. So that's a great way to do it. Can I ask you, Jasper, any tips that you might share based on your experiences out there, 1 or 2 or 3 that you have that could be useful for people to put into place immediately?
Well, I think there's the Zen, right? The older I've got, the more Zen I've become about these things. So I think that's the first thing, is stay icy cool. I think the second thing, and what's been picked up a lot here, is if it really is a crisis and uncertainty, what do people really want? They want comfort. They want engaging, be people's mothers and fathers, calm things down, get into a conversation. Don't let that go missing, because that will come back later. And then that's a going gets tough get going sort of principle. And I think the last one is just hustle. I think you can't, I mean, I've been putting my own capital at risk for some time, and you can't have it both ways. If it is genuinely a crisis and there is genuinely uncertainty, you got to work harder. I know that's old fashioned, but you can't have it both ways.
No, I love it. And it's true, because I think anytime we have this uncertainty, you do have customers who are more stressed and more anxious. And that's why I think empathy, which is so associated with customer experience, would favor a customer experience approach rather than a pure marketing call, etc. Paul, from your perspective, from both B2B and B2C, your thoughts on maybe tips that people could employ in the coming months to sort of help them grow their business?
Yeah, to Marty's point, I mean, be the mother and father, stay close to the customer, reassure them that everything's going to be okay, because everything will be okay. You know, reminded of this old saying that this too will pass, and it will. There's always the bell curve. We reach the top of it, we go back down again. So it's to reassure people that you're here for them, you're here to listen to them and support them whatever way you can. I think that's key. Again, I can't overemphasize, keep communicating with your staff openly and honestly and regularly, because that will keep them motivated and keep them involved. And particularly, I think Marty touched on earlier on, I mean, the young people, or Jasper picked up on it, the young people have so many ideas, and yet in lots of situations, they're not trusted because they're only in the door, or they feel they haven't got the experience. They often have the greatest ideas, and we need
100% agree.
we need to listen to them. You know what I mean? And then finally, know who your customers are, where they're based in the world, and then what you want them to know, and how do you want them to hear and see your message. I think that's key. Keep innovating, be that across the telephone, be it on digital, be it face to face, be it through conferences. You know, meet their needs at where they're at, and they won't, not only will you retain them, they will also refer you to other customers.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Siobhan, can I go back to you again? It's kind of another summary time. Is there anything in there you would like to add that could be useful to people on the go tomorrow?
I think I probably just touch on briefly on what the guys have said there. I mean, to me, it's about, you know, increasing loyalty in those challenging times. It really does come down to personalization and really knowing your customers. Marty, you touched on it earlier on about that reliability and consistency. It's so crucial, especially if times are tough. People are going to be considering where they're spending their money, and they want to make sure that they know what they're getting. So that delivering on your promise is so important. In terms of that, keeping your staff, again, I think that empowerment, that is the secret sauce to customer experience and to keeping your staff engaged. It's empowering them, giving them that trust and autonomy, and communicating them and managing their expectations as well. And again, when we look at reducing costs, you know, the power of mapping out your customer journeys, of looking to see where are we doing well, where are we not doing so well, and how can we cut those unnecessary calls, those unnecessary emails, and improve the experience, but also reduce costs and show real ROI. So to me, it's fantastic to see the learnings from the three entrepreneurs and experts in the field, that you know, what we talk about in our framework is, it comes back to those simple things ultimately, and doing what's right for your customer and doing what's right for your staff.
Love it, love it. And listen, while we have a bit of time, Louise, I'm going to ask you to kind of jump in with some questions. But before I do that, I just, one has popped up here, and I suspect, Jasper, this could be aimed at you. Manuela has asked a question. Once upon a time, and I love this question because I'm flying a lot at the moment and I'm getting this exact same issue. Once upon a time, we could visit a restaurant and chat with the server, ask them what they suggest we eat, etc. But nowadays, it's quite impersonal. You scan a code at the table, view the menu, etc. I miss the conversations. Jasper, any thoughts on that?
This is my Indian sister, Manjula. Manjula, I couldn't agree more. Listen, first of all, come to our restaurants. We don't have any of that scanning codes going on. But I love what you're saying, and there's a basic principle here, which is the unit of all CX, the unit of life, really is the conversation, and it's a skill. It's not an abstract thing. It's a skill. It's a muscle. It's something that needs working. And I think it's its own reward in the sense that I have every confidence that however clever the machine gets, it'll never have a conversation like you, Manjula.
Well done, well done. Louise, are there other ones there? You might have been tracking some of the earlier questions. Are there one or two in there that you would like the panelists to address?
Yeah, so Gemma asks, do you have any thoughts on motivating a CEO, CFO, or MD to continue to support when pressure is on, to reduce costs on CX projects come under pressure against short-term financial pressures?
Who'd like to tackle that one? Marty, I see you smiling.
Well,
Are
I
you
think,
the
you
recipient
know,
of those budget requests?
well, I think in the public company world, it's a different kettle of fish. I mean, if the American model is, if the pressure's on and the earnings are coming up, they, they have to hit the numbers. I think it's slightly different in a private business or where we're really thinking about the long term. So, um, yeah, I mean, I would always be, the first place to go is going to be looking at, for sales, certainly marketing, but I have that battle every day, but I don't seem to make a lot of progress on it. I think that's right now things are going well, so I'm not making much progress. But yeah, no, that's a tough one. I think it really depends on the organization.
Paul, what are your thoughts on that? Getting leadership buy-in. You've been through that argument many times, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, given how we get the message out nowadays, it's mainly across, internationally, it's across, to get people into the funnel, the marketing funnel, it's digital advertising, it's partnerships. We faced a situation a couple of years back just after COVID. Well, money was tight, and our marketing budget was cut by half. Now, what does that mean? In essence, we were in the dark for half a year. So our always on was always off. So for the last 6 months of the year, we had no way of reaching potential clients or existing clients. So we put together a business proposal to convince our CEO and the board that we're, in essence, a sales and marketing organization. And a sales and marketing organization without a marketing budget or a CX budget is gone, basically. So that's what happened, and they bought into it. And now, thankfully, we have a very good budget. It's no danger of it being cut again. If it is, I'd be fighting. But that to reflect the reality as well, that companies do go through downturns, and unfortunately, the soft stuff, i.e., as they say it, the marketing CX is first to be cut. But I think the stronger link you can make between CX and profitability, and CX and customer retention, and CX and customer referral, it's very hard then to cut that.
Yeah,
because you showed, yeah.
It's interesting, Paul. I suppose from my own perspective, on the CX side, I have been a marketeer all my life, and I shifted back into CX because I started my career in the 80s in patient experience. And one of the things that I find about CX in terms of addressing this question, how do you get buy-in? Anytime, and I've been through 3 significant recessions in my career, the first thing most businesses will do will lock in their most valuable customers, ring fence them in a way that they're going to continue to give you business. Secondly, you need to go after your competitor brands that are suffering and see if you can win over some of their customers to allow you to do things. And the beauty about CX, when you deliver CX excellence, I mean, Marty, you're doing this because your numbers would suggest it. When you deliver, like, one, you're locking in your customers, but they are becoming advocates for your brand. Marty, 80% referrals. Sorry, not for retention in terms of that sort of thing, but a lot of that, your business is coming through that. So I do think that CX is a very, very powerful discipline that we should be leveraging as much as we can. And it is the strongest argument. We have so many great arguments around return on investment, etc., that should support decision-making being positive for the continuation of CX. Jasper, anything on that around, in terms of investors, because I know you're in that space too, how do you get investors to continue to support businesses that are pro CX?
I think if you're having the conversation and they're skeptical, it's sort of too late. So I'm with Marty and Paul in the sense that the more metrics you can build in, when times are easier, to demonstrate the return, I think that's important. I think the other big message is there's a consequential cost to cutting things like CX, right? If the centerpiece of CX is a relationship, there's a cost to turning it off. If I decided not to talk to Mrs. Reid for 2 weeks, I think initially the first 2 days she'd be quite pleased. But by the end of 2 weeks, I'd be in her very bad books because I just cut the conversation off. So, hats off to Paul for getting people to think a different way in the organization. But I think that's the other message is You turn it off, you save some costs, you create a bigger cost. But if you're having that conversation on the hoof with your CFO, who's got blood in their eyes, that might be too late.
Well, I mean, actually, Katie Rhodey asked a good question, which I think ties in with this whole area about how do you buy in and continue. Points of view around leveraging AI. Can I just throw that at the three of you? Points of view about leveraging AI as possibly a supplement to cost cutting, or are we talking about using AI to improve the delivery? Thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I mean, I jump in there. I mean, I certainly, the more I learn about it, the more exciting and really curious as to how we can leverage for our business. Clearly, it's going to bring greater efficiencies to different parts of the organization, which in theory should create more time for people to improve the customer experience of the client. And from our perspective, the 80% pass time to referral, a lot of that is nurtured by social media, reminding people where you are. And I see AI playing more and more a role in the sales and marketing function. I really do. The intelligence that's gained creates more creative ways of generating leads and creates more time for people to focus on them in terms of the touch points.
No, it's very true. Jasper or Paul, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd agree with Marty. I think AI has a place. And just apropos our previous conversation about measuring return on investment, I think AI going forward will produce measurement tools for CX and marketing, which we'll be able to get at a push of a button. I think there's great opportunities there. I think not to overlook the human touch. I mean, Marty made this point and Jasper made this point. The human touch, picking up the telephone is so important. I saw one of the comments in there, people remember the relationship, not the process. And that's so important. That's what will keep the business going. So yes, AI has its place, and I find AI really useful. For example, if I have a large strategy document to summarize, comes back to me in 30 seconds with a summary of the main points, or I haven't got all day to read something, it's brilliant like that. But remember, it's based on existing data. It can't tell you the future. The only way you can get the future is go out and do the hard work, do the market research, find out who's out there. Then you can use AI to support you in getting them. But AI it definitely has its place, but it will never replace the human touch.
Jasper, do you want to finish this off? I'll give you that up.
Yeah, I think CX will be, I'm with everybody here, it's going to be massive. But I think CX is going to be instrumental in this, because in the same way Paul said, people respond to good behavior with good behavior and bad behavior. So does AI. And when we move into agentic AI, when these little agents are scurrying around doing our bidding, there's a massive opportunity for CX there, and using those underlying skills to make it into a good agent, a CX agent, right? Never replace the human, but it'd be jolly useful and save a lot of time.
Brilliant. Siobhan, anything to add to that? Because we're just coming up to the 1 hour. Anything to summarize what's been discussed here?
I'd agree with what the guys were saying there around AI. I think there is huge potential in it. It's fantastic. It's such an exciting space. The key is about balancing that. It's about using AI to really look at those, what would you say, those non-value add tasks, automating where we can, but then also making sure that we're upskilling our humans and allowing our humans and our real people to add value and deal with our customers. And really, I suppose, focus on growing the business while all of the straightforward stuff is dealt with technology. And look, that's only the tip of the iceberg. I think there's so much more to come in terms of CX, but ultimately AI is only really as good as the information that's fed into it. And that's coming from humans. So we have to back to that point that Paul initially made, and you mentioned there, Jasper, as well, around behavior and, modeling behavior. We do that as humans, and AI is doing that. So we have to be conscious of that.
No, brilliant. Guys, I want to thank everybody who's attended here today. Your patience has been fantastic. We have phenomenal feedback, by the way, to the three of you, Marty, Jasper, and Paul. So thank you so much for your honest and comfortable suggestions, and there was nothing there that would drive me crazy in terms of, do we really have to put that in place? I think, it really is about doing a lot of small things really well, continuing to do that consistently. That's going to be important. And Jasper, I liked your piece about, what, if we are in tough times, let's dig in here. Let's go. Let's push ourselves. It shouldn't be just same as. We will have to look at ways of changing. So you can see the comments that are coming through from everybody around the globe. Thank you all so much. A super session. And we really appreciate all your time. And Paul, Jasper, and Marty, thank you so much. Louise, as always, thank you for getting us here today. It's never easy, but well done. And Siobhan, thank you for doing the summary work, which is probably most challenging. So well done, everybody.
Not at all.
And
Thanks,
we will
everybody.
talk to you all very, very soon.
Thank you very much.
The
Thanks, folks.
feedback
Bye-bye.
from
Take care.
everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.